Welcome back, folks. Another Tuesday night, another Barbecue Pit Sports episode here for you. We are doing NFC South today, my favorite division in football because it has my favorite team in football, the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to try to be as least biased as I possibly can. Let me just see. I don't think I picked the Saints for anything. Whatever. We'll get into it. Try not to look at it as all bias. I mean, the Saints did really, really good this offseason, so let's jump into it. We're starting with the Falcons. New Atlanta Falcons. Their additions include Marcus Mariota, their additions and re-signing. So the list of names I have here either re-signed with the team or they were signed in the offseason. Marcus Mariota was signed from Las Vegas. They brought back Cordero Patterson. They brought in Damian Williams as running backs. They brought in Anthony Fisker at tight end because they lost Hayden Hurst to the Bengals. They brought in Jermon Ifedi and Jake Matthews and Elijah Wilkinson at offensive line. They re-signed Grady Jarrett. They brought in linebackers Lorenzo Carter, Nick Kalakowski, and Rashaan Evans, who I think is a fucking bargain deal. They brought him in. Tennessee let him go. They brought back Isaiah Oliver and signed Casey Hayward, probably going to be a number 1, number 2 corner for them. And then they also re-signed Eric Harris and signed Dean Marlowe. Note that Calvin Ridley will be suspended for the season for betting on NFL games when he was injured. So he's not playing in the game. There's no way he could fix the game, but he did bet on the sport of football. And apparently that's against the rules to the point where he gets suspended for the whole season. So they brought in Mariota. They traded away Matt Ryan to the Colts. They also got rid of A.J. McCarron. They got rid of Mike Davis. He went to the Ravens. Russell Gage went and signed with the Buccaneers. Tajay Sharp signed with the Bears. Of course, talked about Hayden Hurst going to the Bengals. They also lost Dante Fowler, Tyler Davidson, and Jonathan Bullard, along with Stephen Means on the defensive line. Brandon Copeland and Foye Okun left in the offseason, as well as Fabian Moreno, Kendall Sheffield, and Duron Harmon, who went to the Raiders. So they lose some, they get some. I don't see really any major improvements. Losing Matt Ryan and picking up Marcus Mariota, regardless of who you draft, is going to be a bad move. The wide receivers they brought in versus the ones they lost, I kind of favor the ones they brought in. They brought in Damiere Byrd, Auden Tate, Cardale Hodge, and Brian Edwards. I think that group is better than Russell Gage and Tajay Sharp, because both of those guys play very similar styles, whereas Auden Tate and Brian Edwards, Cardale Hodge all play kind of physical and deep threats, whereas Damiere Byrd kind of plays the slot guy. He could do good in the return game as well. Their draft in round 1, they drafted Drake London, wide receiver. Round 2, they drafted an edge rusher and Arnold Ibakiti. And they also drafted Troy Anderson, a linebacker out of Montana State. 3rd round, they got their quarterback, Desmond Ridder, along with linebacker D'Angelo Malone. They got Tyler Englier, a running back out of BYU, in the 5th round. And then in the 6th round, they got an offensive lineman, Justin Schaefer, and then a tight end in John Fitzpatrick. So I think getting Drake London significantly helps you out at the receiver position. I think getting Desmond Ridder could possibly help you in the future with your quarterback situation. And then I'm seeing a lot of people say Tyler Englier, for fantasy purposes, should be drafted. Draft him. He's going to be good. Apparently, Cordero Patterson has something in his contract where he re-signed where if he gets X amount of plays as a receiver, then he has to get paid X amount of dollars to raise his pay to a receiver's pay or some shit like that. So there's some kind of notion that the Falcons are going to use him more as a receiver than a running back this year. Which, if that's the case, you're going with a committee with Damian Williams and Angler and other guys like that. So maybe get him for the committee, but I mean, he's not going to be a clear-cut one. He's not going to be a clear-cut 3-down back. So I don't really get why anybody would say to draft him, any more than they would say draft Cordero Patterson, who you could draft as a running back, but could play wide receiver type of fantasy points all throughout the season. I don't get it. Carolina Panthers, they just brought in Baker Mayfield with a trade with the Browns. They got Deonta Foreman from the Titans. They also brought in Rashard Higgins, re-signed DJ Moore and Brandon Zylstra. And they also got Andre Roberts for the return game. They re-signed Ian Thomas. They also got offensive lineman Austin Corbett and Bradley Bozeman, significant improvements to their offensive line. They brought in defensive lineman Marquise Haynes and Matthew Iodonis. Linebackers Corey Littleton and Damian Wilson. Cornerback Dante Jackson was re-signed as well. And they also brought in safeties Justin Burris, Xavier Woods, and Sean Chandler. Chandler and Burris re-signing, Xavier Woods signing with the team. They lost Cam Newton. That's all right. Baker Mayfield's a better quarterback. They lost Amir Abdullah. That's all right as well. He's kind of a return man. Deonta Foreman can help you out in the 3-down stretch. If McCaffrey goes down, of course. They lost offensive lineman John Miller and Matt Paderis, who, in my opinion, are a step down, or Austin Corbett and Bradley Bozeman are a step up from those two guys. They also lost Morgan Fox and Daquan Jones on the defensive line. Jermaine Carter Jr. went to the Chiefs. Hassan Reddick went to the Eagles. A.J. Boye and Stephen Gilmore both leaving. So definitely took a step down at cornerback. They took a step down at linebacker. Other than that, I mean, kind of lateral movements / slight upgrades. Still going to be a shit team. Still probably going to be 3rd or 4th in the division. Not going to have a winning record. The draft was okay. They got Akeem Ekwonu with their 1st-round pick, an offensive tackle at NC State. They got Matt Corral with their 3rd-round pick, a quarterback to kind of throw in Matt Corral, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. They got Brandon Smith, linebacker out of Penn State in the 4th round. 6th round, they got Amari Bernaro, an edge rusher, and Cade Mays, another offensive lineman. Then in the 7th round, they got Kalon Burns from Baylor, cornerback. Kalon Burns, I heard, is making a good bit of splash in training camp in the preseason. So he's positive to look out for in a weak cornerback room that the Panthers have. Other than that, Akeem Ekwonu is probably going to start. No surprise there. Matt Corral's a project, and these other guys are kind of just rotational pieces, I believe, for the Carolina Panthers, which brings us to my team, the New Orleans Saints, who only got better, in my opinion. They lost Blake Bortles and Trevor Siemian. They re-signed Jameis Winston, and they also bring in Andy Dalton to be a backup. Significant improvement from Trevor Siemian or Blake Bortles. They brought in Malcolm Brown as a running back. They lost Ty Montgomery. Ty Montgomery kind of just plays a receiver role somewhat and kind of a return man. Malcolm Brown's going to add a little bit more depth to our running back room. They brought in Jarvis Landry and re-signed Tyquan Smith. They lost LaJordan Humphrey and Kenny Stills. No big deal there. Serious improvement with Jarvis Landry over LaJordan Humphrey and Kenny Stills. They lose Garrett Griffin to the Lions as a tight end. They lose Terrion Armstead to the Dolphins, one of the best offensive lines, so the offensive line takes a small hit. They lose Quan Alexander to the Jets. Malcolm Jenkins retires. Marcus Williams goes to the Ravens, and Jeff Heath also leaves the team, meaning they got 3 of their 4 or 5 safeties they had on the roster all left. That leaves them with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. What do? They bring in Tyrann Mathieu, Daniel Sorensen, and Marcus May. All 3 of those guys are better than Malcolm Jenkins. Marcus Williams is debatable for a few of those guys, but Tyrann Mathieu is definitely better. And Marcus May, debatable with Marcus Williams. Daniel Sorensen, definitely not better than Marcus Williams. Either way, we significantly improved our safety room. They re-signed P.J. Williams. They re-signed Taco Carlton, and they signed Kentavious Street. They also signed center Nick Martin, which doesn't do much for their offensive line, but hey, 1st round, they draft Chris Olave to add to their wide receiver room, which now is fucking stacked. They got Michael Thomas coming back. They got Jarvis Landry. They got Chris Olave. They got Tyquan Smith still. They got Deontay. The last name was Harris last year. It's going to be Hardy this year. They are fucking stacked at the wide receiver position. They bring in Taylor Penning also in the 1st round. He's been playing like shit. Not really happy about that. Second round, they bring in Alontae Taylor to help their cornerback room. That's good. That's really good. Good to add some young depth to our corners. DeMarco Jackson from Appalachian State, a linebacker signed from the 5th round. And then defensive tackle Jordan Jenkins to beef up the defensive line. Overall, looking at this offseason, we have the Saints, I say, not we, the Saints have one of, if not the best defense in the entire NFL. Top 10 cornerback in the league, top 5 safety in the league, along with a young up-and-coming safety, along with a top 25 safety in Marcus May, a top 10 or top 15 middle